Hey guys, it's Kenny here from the FantasyFanatics.com and the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast, bringing you my cash game cornerstones for the Valero Texas Open. Before we get into this week, let's recap my picks from last week's RBC Heritage. After a bit of a lull before the Masters, we've gotten back on track with a couple of back-to-back 4-of-4 showings. My picks this past week were Martin Kaymer, Adam Hadwin, Jason Dufner, and Pat Perez. Kaymer played just okay, finishing in 32nd place, but he went on a nice little birdie barrage on Sunday, which really helped with his DraftKings points. He fell back with a bunch of bogeys on the back nine on Sunday, but birdies are king on DraftKings, and he still finished with almost 80 DraftKings points, even though he finished in the middle of the pack. Adam Hadwin continued his solid play, finishing with a score of -7, which led to a 22nd place finish. Jason Dufner slept with the lead on Saturday night, but really fell apart on Sunday as he finished in 11th place with a score of -8. It was pretty disappointing. I really thought Dufner had a chance to win. He basically choke-jobbed it up Sunday afternoon. Lastly, Pat Perez played well for 3 of the 4 days, but shot a shocking 81 on Saturday, which tumbled him down the leaderboard as he finished the tournament in 70th place with a score of +3. No guys in the top 10, which is a little disappointing. But in cash games, if you get 6 to 6 through in an event with a cut, the odds are high that you are going to cash. So hopefully if you use my picks, you're able to find the correct duo to finish your lineup, and you finished in the green. Now let's get to this week. The Valero Texas Open is played at TPC San Antonio, which is usually one of the most difficult courses on tour. Greg Norman designed this course while in the midst of a divorce, and I think he let out some of his anger on the course design. The course plays at 7,435 yards, and it could be even longer with some wet weather in the forecast for the week. The forecast has changed a little bit since I wrote this down, so it could be a little bit drier than expected. The fairways are narrow and some of the toughest to hit on tour. Only about 57% of balls land on the short grass here off the tee. The approach shots aren't much easier, as the greens are average in size but have closely mown edges that are shaped like an upside-down bowl. So golfers will have to be extremely accurate to keep their balls from rolling into collection areas or bunkers. Only about 56% of all approaches land on these greens. The greens use Bermuda grass and are usually multi-tiered and undulated and have a stip meter of around 11. Surprisingly, putting here is somewhat easy, as the course is one of the easiest on tour when it comes to putting average and one putts made. Weather plays a big factor here, as Texas winds usually gust to around 20 miles per hour or more. So far, the forecast calls for winds in the 10 to 20 mile per hour range. Some stats I'm looking for this week on the Fantasy Fanatics spreadsheet are strokes gained off the tee, birdie or better percentage, par 4 scoring, proximity from 150 to 175 and 175 to 200, and strokes gained around the green. So on this spreadsheet, I'll be weighting key stats at 50%, recent form at 30%, and course history at 20%. Now, let's get on to the picks. First up is the extreme course horse, Charley Hoffman, and $10,700. He has made all 7 of his cuts here since the tournament moved to TPC San Antonio in 2010. In those 7 starts, he has never finished worse than 13th, and he is the defending champion. He makes birdies, is great off the tee, plays par 4s above average, and is really good from 150 to 175 yards. I wouldn't worry too much about his miscut last week, as I suspect that was just a little bit of a Masters hangover. Not overthinking it here with this pick. Dude loves this course, has some good form with 4 top 25s in his last 6 events, including a couple of top 5s. Use him with confidence this week in cash. Next up, it's going to be Brendan Steele at $9,900. Steele, he's going to be popular this week with a little bit of a discounted price compared to the other studs up top, but it's definitely well deserved. He comes in as my #1 ranked golfer overall on the Fantasy Fanatics spreadsheet. He's 26th in birdie or better percentage, 44th in strokes gained off the tee, 11th in par 4 scoring, 76th in proximity from 150 to 175, 6th in proximity from 175 to 200, 29th in strokes gained around the green, and 13th in strokes gained tee to green. When it comes to stats, Steele is a monster. He's a clear-cut favorite when you're just looking at stats. But, he picked up his maiden victory here at TPC San Antonio in 2011, so he's definitely familiar with the course. He's made 5 of his 6 cuts here with 4 top 15s. He's actually made 15 straight cuts on tour and is having one of his best seasons of his career with 6 top 25s, including a win at the Safeway. Again, not going off the rails with this pick, and I think he makes for a very safe cash game option this week. Okay, so my next pick, I might be going off the rails a little bit with this pick. It's going to be Keegan Bradley at $7,600. I know my co-host on the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast hated me for this pick. I'm going with it. I don't think I've ever used Keegan in cash, at least for the last year or so. But this week, I think I'm going to go with him. I know it's crazy, but let me try and persuade you here a little bit. First off, he's made 4 consecutive cuts on tour. Secondly, he actually gained strokes putting last week at Hilton Head. Yes, Keegan Bradley gained strokes on the green last week at Hilton Head. If you actually look back at his 3 previous tournaments played, he has only lost 1 stroke to the field on the putting greens. For Keegan, that's pretty excellent, losing only a combined 1 stroke in 3 events. He's known as a tee to green monster, and that's something that I'm looking for this week. He makes a lot of birdies, is excellent off the tee, plays par 4s well, and is great with his irons from 150 to 200 yards. Like I stated earlier, putting is one of the easy-ish parts of this course, and with his solid tee to green game, I think he can do well here. He has made both of his cuts here in 2 appearances, and in his first appearance here, he finished top 10. I think he finished 8th about 4 or 5 years ago here. It's possible I regret this decision come Friday night, but if he keeps putting near average, I think he sees the weekend and he might surprise with a high finish. Okay, after the craziness of the last pick, we go back to normal. As my final pick, it's going to be Daniel Summerhays at $7,000. If Charley or Hoffman is the course horse, then Summerhays is the course pony, I guess. He's made his last 5 cuts here with 4 top 15s and 3 top 10s. His stats and form aren't great, so this is basically almost just a course history pick. I know a lot of people aren't too high on using course history, and when it comes to GPPs, I don't pay too much attention to it. But when it comes to cash games, I like looking at course history, especially for golfers in the lower price range. In interviews with Summerhays, he stated that his love for this, he loves this course and he wishes he could play it every week because it would lead to a higher world golf ranking for himself. If you're really worried about his form, just listen to this. He has missed 3 of 6 cuts twice in the last 5 years leading up to this event, and he finished inside the top 10 both those years. Leading up to this year's tourney, he has only missed 2 cuts in his last 6 events. Not sure if he can make another top 10, but I do bet that he makes the cut. All right, guys, that's it for my picks. Let's recap my picks for the Valero Texas Open. They're going to be Charley Hoffman at $10,700, Brendan Steele at $9,900, Keegan Bradley at $7,600, and Daniel Summerhays at $7,000. Make sure you guys check thefantasyfanatics.com for all its cool info. One of the better spreadsheets out there to use to help you with your research. Great strategy center. Brad Messersmith does a GPP video. iPod Todd does his Euro video, which is always key. It's especially, next week there's no tour event on DraftKings. I think it's only Euro, so definitely make sure you check iPod Todd out and all the other things that thefantasyfanatics.com has to offer. All right, guys, good luck. Win some money, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.